Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Nerd Variety Podcast. I am your host, Hannah, and there's your other host, Hunter.
What?
And your other host, Josh.
Is that a gang sign?
Josh.
No, I was trapped in
Birds.
I'm trapped in
butterflies.
the box here, and
No, I mean me.
Okay.
I was wondering about me. I did that. I was like, is that we need? I don't know.
Anyway,
you repping, Hunter?
today we're talking about the question: do we prefer sequels or remakes? Now, just to get some definitions out of the way, we're just going to be sticking to movies. And we're not talking about when stuff changes forms of media, so games going to movies or movies going to TV shows or whatever.
Those
We're not
called
talking about that.
adaptations.
We'll talk about adaptations in a few weeks. Right now, we're just talking about movies. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I recently learned that Matrix 4 is a thing.
You recently
Which,
learned.
yeah, well, I
recently
mean,
learned
like
this.
a month ago, whatever.
Yeah.
But the Matrix 4 is a thing, and my husband's first response was like, why? But then my
Because
second
the Matrix.
response was, at least they're not making a remake, because I think that would be worse.
Right.
But it brings up an interesting conversation. So I want to know, first of all, what you guys think about that. Would it be worse to have a new Matrix or to have Matrix 4?
I was actually thinking of this earlier today. So
That's a tough
it is a tough one.
Now,
I
remember
think-
that in Matrix 4, they are having, like, Trinity and Neo are the original actors.
That's gonna be
Mhm.
weird,
Right.
considering
For sure.
they both were supposed to die at the end of the third one.
Yep.
But it's
And they're old.
so.
older.
I mean, Keanu Reeves is making
Never
a
really
comeback,
old,
obviously.
but yeah.
But
Keanu's timeless, but
Yeah.
like it's so I think it's better at the point they're at now that they're doing a sequel. However, I was also thinking I believe that the first Matrix would have done just fine being a standalone film and not.
So you think they
having any
never should have
follow-ups.
made sequels?
Yeah,
They didn't have to.
like I think it would have been perfect, and like I think it would have been perfect if you just had even the first movie and then the Animatrix, because the Animatrix was fantastic and it helped build the world and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then it got really muddled in
do
the
remember
other two sequels.
I do remember a little bit about Animatrix. What did that come? What did that air on?
I don't know where it aired, if it aired really at all. I guess I only ever had the DVD with it, so
Okay.
I really liked that. But and I think now though it would be weird if they did a remake.
Yeah, it's become one of those trilogies you can't really pick up again, like, but I guess it's getting kind of the Star Wars treatment where you're getting kind of a sequel. You might get a sequel series or sequel trilogy to go with it.
Yeah, but I feel like
I
it would have
wouldn't
been.
remake it. No.
Yeah, I feel like it would be like trying to redo the Lord of the Rings movies, and I know we had The Hobbit recently.
Yeah, but those were that was a prequel trilogy.
Yeah,
those are
and they were
prequels.
pretty good. Not as good, clearly, but pretty good. But like, it would be so weird to have like an actual sequel or a remake of the Lord of the Rings movies, and I feel like Matrix is kind of in that same area.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I could personally see more Lord of the Rings stuff happening. Just
Sure,
like,
but
basically, but that's me thinking of how
But if
much
they,
I
like-
enjoy like the games like Shadow.
right, and I feel like there's a lot that could happen in that world. But if they like brought back Elijah Wood, you'd be like,
Yeah.
what? But you went off to the Magic Land.
The story ended. That was it.
Yeah.
Like you sailed away on a boat and left Sam behind with his family. Like, well,
Yeah.
okay, welcome
Yeah.
back, I guess.
Jerk.
So
I mean, I'm hoping Matrix 4 is going to be good. I
I hope so,
expect it
too.
to be good because they've had time to understand the mistakes, I think, of 2 and 3. So,
Yeah.
I and again, Keanu Reeves is on a roll lately. So,
yeah, he is. That is true.
and
They
it's
know
coming
that-
out the same day as John Wick 4. So I'm excited for both of those, Keanu.
Yeah, they know they can make bank, so they're gonna
Yeah.
try. And they have.
And they have
worried
better
about
technology.
Well, yes, they do have better technology, but I'm worried they might overdo it with the
They might Rogue One
CG.
it.
We're not talking about that.
Yeah, because that was catastrophe.
Or
Never mind,
like-
I'll stop.
like-
I'll stop.
like another, like, if we're going talking about sequels, the Star Wars movies. Yes, they brought in better technology to make better effects, but there were some story issues there.
I almost feel like the pressure to live up to a movie that was as successful and as like well liked as The Matrix is gonna honestly just make them kind of fall short. Right? The pressure from us, like they're not gonna meet our expectations, but I feel like the people who are making the movies are gonna have so many things that it's like, oh, we have to have this and that and the other, right, to make it like kind of live up to the legacy that I feel like that's what happened with Star Wars. That like they're like,
Yeah.
we need these things, and as a result, it was just kind of subpar.
But I mean, so immediately off the top of my head, I can think of two completely different ways that these kinds of things have gone. One's a video game and another's a movie franchise. But thinking of like in video games, the bad side of this was like Duke Nukem. When they did Duke Nukem Forever, it was such a long period of time between the last one and then Duke Nukem Forever, and they just tried to make it as stupid and immature as he was before. But by that time, it was so over.
Played out.
It was done. It was past its time, and it was just awful, and it felt old, like it didn't belong in the time it was. But then, in terms of like movies, you have something that was, I think it was technically a sequel, but it was also different enough, and it's been far enough out, was Mad Max, when they did the one with Tom Hardy, Fury Road.
Yep.
Like that was a really good like sequel
Right.
to Mad Max, and again, it was way after all of the other ones, but it managed to do really
They
well.
did a good job of using special effects and having a very good story to tell as a remake.
Yeah, and they didn't try to like change too much of it. I don't think they kept a good feeling, and they kept what I think made the originals good, and still were able to make it modern and appeal to a modern audience without losing the charm.
They definitely did.
I feel like in general, sequels, I don't know so much about remakes, but I feel like sequels fall into like one of three categories, which is the like, this was a plan from the start, right? So like with the MCU, right? All those movies have been pretty good because like they've all kind of been intentional from the get-go, right? And then you have the stuff that's like, oh, hey, this movie was successful, so let's make another one. And you can tell when that's happening. And then I feel like there's also stuff that you can tell is also just really like a passion project. And I think that those tend to turn out better than the stuff that's just like, hey, so like,
do you have an example?
I can't think of a good passion project, but for me, like the Pirates of the Caribbean, like they just kept going. Like, yes, the first Pirates of the Caribbean is honestly like
perfect.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, like it might be into one of those, like I might put it in like my masterpiece collection. I think it's a fantastic movie.
I actually just rewatched the first
Oh my
three.
gosh.
Unfortunately, Disney Plus took off like the fourth one, which I'd never seen. But they
Stranger
still have the
Tides.
fifth one. Yeah, they still have the fifth one on there, but it's I don't know.
You really like.
I've not seen either of those last two.
I really get the impression that like the first one was so successful, they just kind of kept going and took it too far.
Yes.
But I mean, didn't they kind of set up the sequel?
No, not really, but they
set up the
just
third
having,
one
Set up
from the second one.
Yeah.
And rewatching the third one, they set up the fourth one, I think. Again, the fourth one them going to the Fountain of Youth, or because that's kind of what they set up at the end of the third one.
I can't even remember.
Well, they leave it as a possible future. That he's got a map
because he has like
he wants to find the Fountain of Youth because he wants to be immortal, and that says okay, well we'll set it up for maybe a future movie, even though this trilogy has ended. But then they made it, and it was okay. Then they made Dead Men Tell No Tales, and it was just at that time it was just like, oh, well, I guess they're back doing.
Still going.
I guess we're still doing this. That's kind of the fear we might have with Matrix. I might have with Matrix 4.
Now, my one hope is that I feel like when you see those movies that like they did really well and so they're going to do a sequel, they tend to get spit out pretty quickly, I think, in terms of like they get produced really fast. And so my hope is that with this stuff that we're like waiting a long time for, so like it's been ages since the last Matrix movie, hopefully that means that they're like really putting time and effort into this.
Yeah, because they filmed like the second and third one at the same time.
Yeah.
They released it like I think they released both of them in the same year. I think one was like in the beginning of the summer, and then the other one was like in winter or like at the end of the year.
Yeah, but I think a good example to deviate from movies just for a second is the live action Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Like I'm willing to wait until they think like they've done a good job with it, basically, right? Because like when you're putting passion into something, like it might take a little bit longer to really make it quality, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, I won't be mad if they delay it for another year and a half or 2
I'll be
years.
upset, but I'll understand.
I mean,
I'll be fine. If they're going to do this live action, let's go all out. Let's
make it beautiful
and make it a masterpiece.
Speaking of that kind of thing, maybe this is more of a video game thing for like gamer audiences, but I tend to think when things get delayed, a lot of times, I mean, it depends obviously on the reasons and how it's presented to you, but usually if something's delayed, I think that's usually a good thing. I mean, sure, people are disappointed that they're not going to get it as soon, but if it's because they need more time, I always think people are like, good, take your time.
I appreciate that.
Take your time to make it better.
It took a long time for us to get Borderlands 3, but we got a pretty good game out of it.
Right. Yeah. And I want to see my character running on a blue screen or falling through a mountain. Please don't.
Go through all the beta testing. Do all of it, please.
Yes.
And I mean, then of course there are some things that are delayed, movies as well as in games or anything else, but that do get delayed for bad reasons, like production. People don't want to keep working on it, like directors keep switching, developers, whatever. And then usually those are the bad signs, and that's when something falls apart. And then if it eventually does get made, that's when people finally just kind of rush it through because they just want to get it out there. And that's when
it's done. No, it's not. It wasn't done. You lied.
Yeah. To try and get us back on topic a little bit, I was going through a mental list of good sequels, bad sequels, bad remakes, and good remakes, but I couldn't actually think of any good remakes. So I was wondering if you guys had anything. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Hunter.
Okay. So, well, I was talking a little earlier about like a distinction between like video games do this more. They have a different name for it. They tend to have a difference between remakes and remasters. Remakes being like last year's Call of Duty Modern Warfare, where it's like a lot of the same characters, a general similar setting. Story is kind of the same-ish, but, obviously they change everything. It feels different. It feels new, very updated. It's like you're taking the same idea but making it newer and redoing it. And, things tend to play out differently. But you can still tell that it's like kind of the same thing generally. But then there's like a remaster, which is pretty much you're giving it a new coat of paint. You're reworking some things, make it maybe slightly smoother, like the Assassin's Creed 3 remaster. Actually, Assassin's Creed did a lot of remasters, but that kind of thing. And then movies kind of have this where, like True Grit was an example I was thinking of. They did like I forget what year it came out, like 2011, I think, was Jeff Bridges. And it was like the same movie. It was like the same characters. Everything went exactly the same, except, it looked nicer. It was probably better acted. I don't really remember the original True Grit as well. It's been longer since I've seen that. But, it's just better. It looked nicer, but they really didn't change anything.
So it was more like the intent was to just recreate the same movie, but make it prettier.
Yeah, like more
Whatever that
accessible
means.
to new audiences.
Well, how
probably
about
bring
the
people in.
Disney remakes live action remakes that they've done?
That's true.
Aladdin
we
and
did
Lion
kind of
King
talk
from
about
last
this.
year.
We kind of talked about this before we recorded. I think that's more along the lines of an adaptation, kind of going from animation to live action.
I feel like it depends. I feel like the Beauty and the Beast, I feel like was pretty spot on. I haven't seen Mulan yet, obviously, but I feel like that's definitely going to be more along the lines of an adaptation.
Next month, yeah.
That looks more like a remake, from what I can tell. Almost. I mean, right?
Well,
from what I can tell, it looks pretty different than.
Well, let's look at movies that we've actually that have been out for a while. We've seen, and you guys seen Aladdin and the Lion King, the new Lion Kings from last year, right?
I haven't seen either of them.
I haven't seen. No, I haven't seen.
I need to see them. I feel terrible.
I didn't even see Beauty and the Beast.
It's more so watch them for more so just to be able to compare the original ones. And I would say these are remakes because they don't really follow, like, of course they're not gonna go back to the source material with Lion King because that's Hamlet. They're not gonna go back to the source material with Aladdin because people wouldn't get the same, fun Disney, Americanized story of the Arabian Night like they did with 1992 Aladdin, the animated one. And but these were, I would say Aladdin did a good job of making a decent remake. I hope, and Lion King, most of it looked good, but it was a lot of issues with translation. Yeah, and both the original anime movies are guilty of having like sequels, having like here's a sequel, here's another sequel, here's another sequel, and you start seeing the continual drop in quality for each one.
Yeah, and it's so funny to say that Disney is terrible at sequels because Disney is everything at this point.
They're notorious.
Disney is Marvel, and Marvel's pretty good at sequels, at least in terms of the MCU. But like X-Men's kind of hit or miss, and
which was
Star Wars is kind of hit or
Disney,
miss.
But, yeah.
So, but like stuff that's Disney.
Yeah, but and when I was thinking, sorry for taking this, but when thinking of like forgettable sequels, something I was trying to think of before is that a lot of times. How would you ever remember them? I don't know. I had to think really hard.
Yeah, I bet.
And I'm not.
We're probably missing a lot.
I'm sorry for anybody who's offended. I don't know why you would be, because it's my personal thing. But anyways, I'm not like a Disney fan. Like, I'm more of a like Star Wars, MCU, that kind of fan.
Yeah,
Disney fan.
Well, you were a fan before they were owned, before Disney bought them out.
Yeah. So that, like, Disney, I've never been a huge fan of. So I remember like pretty much every classic Disney animated movie had a sequel, at least one, and those seem to be the most forgettable.
Yeah, I don't think all of them did. I can't think of like there was definitely like a Beauty and the Beast sequel there, which was weird because he was like I wasn't a sequel, it was like a Christmas special. I don't know. It was weird.
Some kind of a mid-cool.
Yeah. It wasn't terrible. There were some really fun characters. I think Tim Curry played like a big alive pipe organ, and that was pretty cool.
The evil pipe organ.
I think The Little Mermaid had a sequel.
The Little Mermaid had 2 sequels.
Yeah. Pocahontas had at least one sequel.
Yeah.
I think
the worst ones.
Mulan had a sequel.
The Mulan sequel wasn't terrible. The worst one.
Lion King had at least one sequel. I feel like it had 2 though.
And then 1.5.
I remember the second. I remember Lion King 2, and I really liked The Lion King 2 personally. But,
the worst is definitely Cinderella. Because I never actually saw Cinderella 2, but basically she was just learning how to be a princess. And then in Cinderella 3, there was time travel. So
because when in doubt, retread the first movie.
It was entertaining. I will give you that. Quality movie, not debatable.
Yeah, but again, like, that's my point there. It's like they are notorious, in my opinion, for just doing very forgettable sequels.
Now let the record stand.
No,
they haven't done that in a while. Like they've
They're
been coming
building
out
back
with a
to it.
lot of new princesses. They do have Frozen 2, which I haven't seen, but all the 8-year-olds I've talked to say they liked it.
Of course,
Um,
that's because it's
Yeah.
Disney princesses.
Yeah.
It was also kind of the same vein as like, oh, we're getting a sequel to that animated movie we liked when we were, that came out like not too long ago in our time, in our childhood, and it's still our childhood.
Yeah, but I feel like they've been trying
Essentially.
to come out with like newer stuff recently. So the adaptation and remakes, whatever the live action ones, are not new, but they're
I think it
not
definitely
sequels.
helped. I think it definitely helped when they got Pixar, which was a while ago still now.
Yeah.
But I mean, and maybe that's just, I think that may just be speculation, but
Yeah, Pixar's pretty solid when it comes to sequels.
Yeah, they really take their time.
Toy Story 4 got mixed reviews, but
I haven't.
Or
I
they
still
make,
haven't
or they
seen
decide to make
Toy Story 4.
prequel about it, like Monsters University, or
Finding
I
Dory
liked that.
was
Finding
great.
Dory was good. Incredibles 2 was good too. It was,
But again, like we have to wait years for these sequels.
yeah.
And I mean, it's Pixar, and they always take a long time to make movies because they're really thorough and they put a lot of heart into it. But like, how long did we wait for The Incredibles 2?
14 years.
Yeah, 14 years, because they were like, we need it to be perfect.
Yeah.
So whereas Disney, back in the day when they were doing all those Cinderella and Little Mermaid sequels, were just kind of
It's like, hey, we made this.
And then
People
this
liked
is
it. Let's do another one.
And then
Yeah.
not to go into another topic, but they can somehow like pull things from the movies and made a TV series out of them.
Yeah, they did that a lot too, didn't they?
Yeah, a lot of it.
Yeah. What I think is an interesting sort of I'm thinking of a word and I can't think of it. Outlier? I guess outlier is DreamWorks, because I feel like they have a good couple of like movie series that are pretty successful.
Are they still DreamWorks?
Yeah.
DreamWorks.
DreamWorks Animation. I don't know, whatever. But I feel like they have a lot of like random one-off movies that don't do as well, and then they have like these long series. So like
Shrek.
The three that come to mind are Shrek,
Lord Jesus.
Kung Fu Panda, and How to Train Your Dragon.
Yeah.
Have all had multiple
How to
sequels.
Train Your Dragon.
Like the first one?
Yeah.
I haven't seen the last How to Train Your Dragon.
Okay, I was gonna say if you haven't seen the first one, we're gonna have a problem.
I saw the first two. I like them
They're
both.
so good.
Yeah.
But I feel like they've had some pretty successful sequels as well.
Yeah, I think they rode the gravy train on those, and they did it tastefully for making good sequels for each one.
Yeah. Now I stopped watching Shrek after Shrek like 17 or whatever. But
I think there was like a musical one. I think that was the one where I was like, no. I think it was like 3 or something.
All right, here, look it up. No, I saw. Yeah. Okay. Apparently, there's only 5, but it's still at least 2 too many, I think.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't see the last 2. So.
Which one? Shrek?
4 and 5. Yeah. Of Shrek.
Oh, there were 5?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I don't know if I saw all those.
And it looks like Shrek might be getting a reboot.
Yeah, actually, I heard about that. Okay.
Oh, maybe that is Shrek 5.
Can I just switch gears a little bit? Okay, can I switch gears a bit?
Sorry.
Or are we still talking about Disney stuff?
No, it's fine.
So, on the topic of like remakes that are kind of unnecessary.
Are you talking about video games again?
No.
Okay.
Ooh, although thanks for reminding me to go back to that.
Stop. I didn't say anything. Forget I said anything.
Fine. I will do my Warcraft 3 rant later.
Can you do like just one of your mini videos for that?
No.
Yes.
Fine. All right. So, but Home Alone, they are doing a remake of it, or a reboot.
Are they?
Yes, and that's an example of a franchise that I think like they should have stopped after the second one. They just kept going though, and it's gotten more and more just what's the word? I don't even know. Like disconnected from where they started. Like the first two, and like the third and fourth one didn't even have Kevin. Kevin in it.
Right.
He wasn't even. They didn't have any of the characters from the original two, but they still called it Home Alone. And this one, it's also like the reboot is not even going to be Kevin McAllister. It's some other kid. It's like, what? Like, you could just make this. You could call it an entirely different movie. I don't know what they're planning on keeping, but they do that a lot. Where like it's a different movie, but like the same premise is something else. Like, how many body switching movies are there? I don't even know.
Because everyone wants to do a Freaky Friday, and they're all original.
Yeah,
but sometimes,
I mean, like,
sometimes they're done tastefully.
But I'm saying, like, they could do that with like Home Alone. Just call it something else. Don't call it Home Alone, but make it like all different characters and everything.
It'd still be kind of tough to spin that as a new Home Alone. I mean, I think I personally would be down for like a one-off, Home Alone sequel with Macaulay Culkin. That would be pretty funny.
He's
got a house. Imagine he's got a house.
I mean, they did that. They did like a commercial for that.
Like the sons of the original two robbers come after him, and they want to kind of bring some. It was just a.
I feel like my biggest question with like making a remake of that is just why.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of like, who are you appealing to? Like, are you trying to appeal to young people who have never seen the original Home Alone? Are you trying to appeal to people who like love that movie but want it done with? Because like the people who love that movie don't care that it's kind of like old-fashioned looking.
Yeah, and again, that's my point. As to, I don't get why they're like remaking it.
Who are you targeting? What is your target audience here?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Again, if you were trying to appeal to a new audience, like a younger audience, call it something else. Make it more appealing to people who aren't already familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can't dip out of both jars. You can't.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, plenty of filmmakers and studios have tried, and apparently continue to.
And then they get we shame them for double dipping.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
All right. Well, Hunter, I know you wanted to talk about superheroes and superhero movies. And sequels and remakes and all of that stuff. And I think the one thing we can all definitely agree on is we don't need to learn Batman's origin story again.
Right. Except, again, I think I said this before, but I will say probably the one time I think it was acceptable in recent history, at least, maybe ever, was when they did it in Joker. Just because it was a really clever way for them to tie that.
Yeah,
to bring that around.
I guess they kind of wanted, since they had Bruce Wayne in there, and Thomas Wayne was the awful character that he was. They were like, let's kill him, and it works. It ties into his origin story.
Just because that was a really interesting way to connect it all.
So let's say we don't need a Batman origin story in a Batman movie.
Yeah,
like,
or a Justice League movie.
Yeah, by all means, give us more Batman movies. Like, we like Batman, but try and do it well, and then come up with something new, please.
We also don't need to see. We also don't need to see Uncle Ben die in Spider-Man.
Nope. Which is what I think was one of the things people really appreciated about
Tom Holland's.
Yeah.
The Civil War.
Homecoming. Yeah.
Because he was already. Actually, I don't remember if they established that he was dead in like home.
They don't mention him at all. It's more of like little. There's a little like hints that like he says Aunt May will be super nervous about me being out by myself so late, and that could be them hinting at Uncle Ben died.
But honestly, his whole origin story they didn't do again. It's like, we know he was at a lab and got bit by a spider. Like, we get it.
And of course that wasn't the important part of it, and I think that was good because that's why I'm happy that they introduced him already as being Spider-Man in Civil War.
Yeah. So we got a really good Spider-Man remake, but Spider-Man also can claim one of the worst sequels of all time.
The Sam Raimi trilogy.
So that's fun.
I was just not. I know a lot of people didn't like the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2.
I enjoyed them.
I liked them better than Tobey Maguire. I'm not.
I'm gonna bring up the some more DC with the Superman movies.
Mm.
You guys know about Superman Returns and how that was kind of a remake sequel to the Reeve movies.
Yeah.
And then it kind of lost sequel steam for a sequel for itself, and then they ended up making Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So comparing the two, which ones did you guys like the requel Superman Returns or did you like Man of Steel better? I personally like Man of Steel. I appreciate Superman Returns, but I like Man of Steel because we did need to see a new Superman, so we can go into a new direction with the films.
Yeah, I remember. I'm not like super familiar with the whole like timeline of like, oh, they were gonna make this is the sequel to that and the blah blah blahs. But I do remember enjoying Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Man of Steel was, as its own movie, was I mean, it was better. It was better than Superman Returns. I still like Kevin Spacey and Brandon Ruth.
Kevin Spacey did a good Lex Luthor. He did a great Lex Luthor, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Brandon Ruth was a decent copycat of Reeve.
It wasn't like a great movie. It was really kind of bad, but like I thought.
Well, yeah, and that's why. Yeah,
it was okay.
You have to listen to like the way I say things about this because I definitely make distinctions between good movies and movies that I enjoyed.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Man of Steel. I thought it was fun.
I enjoyed Superman Returns. Man of Steel, my biggest problem with that now is that it started off their race to catch up to the MCU, which
because Man of Steel itself wasn't really meant to do it to be the. I mean, it could have started it because Superman's the first superhero, yada yada, all that stuff. But then you needed to add more to it. But you can't just have like the pre team up movie Dawn of Justice and then go into the Justice League. It doesn't. It didn't, and it shows it didn't work out that way.
Yeah,
it didn't work for them that way. But
actually, I also real quick wanted to bring up a point. I'll try not to take up too much time because I've been talking a lot. I do want to say that I think they're definitely. I think we can all agree they're getting on track now. Doing sequels and specific. Like Wonder Woman 1984 is coming out soon. I'm super excited. It looks really good. Aquaman was good. Wonder Woman was good. Trying to build their roster before they do team movies is good. Also, I really enjoyed. I enjoy what they're doing with Harley Quinn, and I think that's an interesting thing to look at now. Whereas it's not necessarily sequels, but they're kind of using her as like a common thread through some of these movies. Like if you saw, I don't know if either of you saw Birds of Prey.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah. I liked it a lot, and if you've seen it, you know that it's not as much Birds of Prey. Like that's in there, and it's it's a good part of it. But Harley Quinn is not a member of the Birds of Prey, and she's just kind of in this movie, and she definitely ties it together. And I think they really know that she's more and more becoming a fan favorite. So I like that they're kind of keeping her, and it's the same her. They're kind of continuing her story from Suicide Squad, but again, it's not really a sequel. It's not really a sequel exactly.
Yeah, it's a spin-off, but following her character.
Yeah, and also establishing the Birds of Prey. So hopefully they'll do more with that. But I like that, them taking like an aspect from one movie, in this case Harley Quinn, and moving it through other movies.
Letting her be the glue. Something we never really touched on that has a very clear history of let's make so many sequels, or let's remake it. A lot of horror movies have that curse of of having a remake after so many years. A remake could look good, and sometimes they bring the original character back. That's a good call to make. But sometimes they go to this thing of, oh, let's remake this movie. Let's have these new kids in there and just make callbacks to the old ones. And maybe they're in the same series. Maybe they're just another, version of the same, but the same, horror figure.
Yeah, they're also doing a weird thing lately. It seems, although it may not just be lately. They're doing some stuff where, like, I guess they're remaking movies, but they're remaking movies that weren't originally horror, and they're turning them into horror movies. I feel like I just saw a trailer for something like that the other day. I can't off the top of my head recall what.
Yeah, the only one I can think of is the New Mutants, which is X-Men, but as a horror thing.
Yeah, but I mean that's not like a remake as far as I know, because the New Mutants is just it's an adaptation of the comic.
Yeah, I guess my biggest thing with turning horror movies into doing remakes of horror movies is horror movies already are kind of terrible
generally
most of the time. So I feel like, I don't know, do they ever end up worse? Because it seems like they would just be equally as terrible, but with better graphics, which would make them scarier. So
I mean, I'm sure I could come up with some. Honestly, though, I don't do a lot of horror movies just because they're so bad, and I don't generally find them to be scary. There are occasional ones that I do, or entertaining. Usually, they're just they're just stupid.
All right, so wrapping up this conversation, I do have a couple questions. The first one being, do we prefer sequels or remakes?
Go ahead. Definitely like sequels better.
So you do have an opinion on those two? Yes,
I do like sequels better. Usually, sequels they're not a exact repeat of the original movie. And usually they can be done with better, like, okay, that was a sequel. This is a sequel, so let's call back to the first one, take the good stuff out of that, and make something new but better. But it has to be done very well.
Yeah. I guess I would, based on history, I would probably mostly agree with that. But again, remakes, usually, like, if they're done right, I think it's not just retreading what the original did. I think it's updating it and like kind of more fulfilling the promise of what the original movie could have been or should have been.
Right.
Yeah, I think I mostly agree with you guys, and I think that leads right into my next question, which is like, what's the takeaway from all of this, right? And it sounds like it is like, for me, I think it would be like, make sure like your intentions are in the right place. Right? Just in terms,
if you're doing one or the other.
Yeah, either way, right? So like we talked about the Avatar: The Last Airbender like series that's being remade, right, as a series, and like they're really wanting to like do justice to it, whereas the movie was just seemingly, I don't know what the point was. Like, yeah, that's really what it seemed like.
They found something that people
CGI.
liked.
Yeah.
They decided to make it a movie.
Yeah. And I feel like if you put like thought and intention into stuff, then you can make quality content either way.
Yeah.
And there's not a right or wrong way to do it.
You can do it.
Yeah.
It's about understanding what you're working with, what you're working from.
Yeah. Don't make movies for money. Make movies because movies are great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if it's not great, you won't make any money.
Yeah. Nope.
Audiences can really pick up on if you enjoy what you're making, if you know what you're making, and if you don't.
Yeah. I just think back to I don't know if either of you saw the Power Rangers movie that came out like a couple years ago.
I did not.
Yeah, the 2017.
Yeah. It was live action Power Rangers. It was a ton of fun.
Live action. They're like all live action.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's a good point. But it was a ton of fun. Like, it was a really, really good time, and it was like stupid in all of the perfect ways that Power Rangers was always stupid.
As you expect, of course.
And there were a ton of like nerdy references, and it was honestly just fantastic for being a remake of like this classic show. They did it really, really well. But I think my final question is, are we just old-fashioned? Like, do we just like the originals because those are the ones we grew up with, or are the new ones like actually terrible?
Well, I'm just old.
We're talking remakes.
Not
Remakes,
old-fashioned.
sequels.
We're talking originals versus remakes.
No, I mean sequels too. So like Pirates of the Caribbean, right?
Oh.
Is Pirates of the Caribbean 4 actually a decent movie, but it's just not Pirates of the Caribbean 1, so it seems bad in comparison, or is it just actually garbage?
I've not seen the fourth one, so I can't say.
That's just an example.
I can't say the fourth one was bad. I just know it doesn't. It's definitely not the first one.
Yeah.
Right.
Again,
it was fun. It was fun to watch. I guess seeing that they're picking up the series where they left off, which it did kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
But I still
it's just,
I still do prefer to watch. If I'm going to show someone a Pirates movie, if I have a choice between Stranger Tides and Black Pearl, I'm going to watch Black Pearl.
Obviously.
Again, I mean, I think it depends on how well they do the first time around. You know, like if they're able to deliver what it should be, then I think that's why it's great.
Yeah.
If not, and you know, especially if it's an original thing and it's followed through well, then that's great.
Yeah, I keep thinking about and it hurts me so much. Voyage of the Dawn Treader, Chronicles of Narnia.
Feeling seasick?
Never saw it.
No, the biggest problem was it wasn't like remotely close to the book, and so it was very hard to judge it like as a movie because it wasn't what it was supposed to be. So maybe it was actually a decent movie, but it just wasn't the book. I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't the book, and I feel like they could have definitely, I guess they had paced themselves a bit more. Then they could have brought in those stories and made it cohesive to where even though it was a lot they did on while they were sailing from where they picked up the Pevensies and the Pevensey crew to when they went to the World's End. Spoiler alert. But I think I think that was a kind of a point to show that maybe this might be better at a different media format.
Yeah. Yep. So lots to talk about. There's a ton on my personal list of movies that we didn't even get to. I'm sure you guys are the same. But there's a lot of sequels and remakes, especially recently. So let us know what you think. And in a couple of weeks, we're going to be talking about adaptations. But what's coming up next week?
Next week, it's me, Josh.
Josh.
And I'll be leading a discussion about our favorite sci-fi weapons.
Ooh. In the meantime, we hope you enjoyed. Let us know what you think. Do you prefer sequels or remakes? Or should we just only have new original content?
See ya.
Nerd out.